Joining us now is Tristan Brown. He worked in the Obama administration. Currently, he's a lawyer here in Washington. I want to talk about the elections, but obviously the big story today, Sessions leaving. Is this an attempt by the U.S. president to kind of change the conversation? We know when there's a big story like this, he likes to shift the attention elsewhere. Do you think that that's part of this?
I think reports are that this was in the works probably for a while, that the president has been preoccupied with ending or curtailing the Mueller probe. So, and the fact that it came less than 24 hours after, the final ballots were cast, I think, he probably planned this for a while.
Firing and resignation, there's a big distinction. Talk to us about that when it comes to this sort of thing.
There are certainly legal scholars that believe the Vacancy Reform Act could come into play here, and I think the Trump administration doesn't think it comes into play, but that only mentions death, resignation, or an inability to carry out one's duties. It doesn't include firing. And so there is going to be a question, and I would be surprised if there were not a legal challenge to the president's chosen acting attorney general, Matt Whitaker.
So this is probably going to be with us for a while. What does it do with the Mueller investigation, do you think?
I think Mr. Whitaker has indicated one strategy to curtail the Mueller probe is to drain its budget, but it is already becoming clear that the Democrats are going to be vociferous in protecting the Mueller probe. Senator-elect Romney just came out tonight and said it is important that the Mueller probe not be interfered with. He did express support, or at least not opposition, to Acting Attorney General Whitaker. So I think that remains to be seen.
Romney in the same party, the Republican Party. I think Lamar Alexander also coming out with a comment on Twitter. Okay, the Democrats win the House. There can be investigations. They can kind of hamstring the president. Well, how do you see things playing out in the next couple of years?
From folks I've talked to who will be handling or are handling right now some of the oversight duties for the House of Representatives, they want to be substantive and not just throw everything in the kitchen sink at the Trump administration. They can subpoena documents, they can demand witnesses, they can hold hearings, all week long and haul in administration officials and force them to, account for the spending of the federal budget, decisions that they've made. But I think the Democrats are going to try to be more strategic, focus on policy, and focus on egregious ethics violations. And I think, whether they can exercise restraint with their new power is a question that will have to be answered and will be answered probably early in the new year.
One of the things that I found interesting last night, I want to get your thoughts on this. You look at these red states. I mean, I lived in Kansas for 9 years. You see Sharice Davids winning there in Johnson County. You also see Kendra Horn pulling off an upset in Oklahoma. What do we read into this? Because it was unheard of before that the Democrats would win it, and the Democrat also won the gubernatorial race in Kansas.
Yeah, well, I think the other side of that is that historically, Americans want a check on check and balance in their government, and they want a check on the executive branch. There hasn't been a check for the last 2 years. The Congress is, I think even they would admit they haven't done a lot of oversight. And so I think, that in combination with the Democrats fielded really good candidates, and they were very on message and focused on being substantive and not falling into the trap of just getting in arguments about what the president said or the latest, issue of the day on Twitter.
It always comes down to Twitter, doesn't it? Tristan, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate your analysis.